All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan, and I'm the pastor here. And hey, it's really good to be with you all on another Saturday night live in the house, and you all online on Facebook, YouTube, on our website, wherever you're joining us from your sober living home or from your free circle all the way out in the state of Washington or the state of North Carolina or Florida or Arizona or Michigan or I know I'm missing a ton of states, but welcome. We're glad you're here. If you're tuning in later in the week for the live stream, we're also glad you're here. Listen, if you're new with us this evening, I need to remind you that this is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. That's what we're about here at Free. So glad you're with us. A couple of things you might want to know about coming up. First, we are starting a new series tonight because last week was Easter, Resurrection. So it makes sense to start a new series. This series is called, do we have it on the screen, Drew? This series is called Deep Clean. We're going to spend 7 weeks in the deep clean. What are the things we need to be deep cleaned of? Tonight, it's you know what? We say it every week here. We don't do shame. It's time to talk about the why behind that. Why don't we do shame here at Free? Next week, Who God Is. Oh, can we keep it up for one more moment? Who God Is, April 24th, Why Healing is Necessary on May 1st, Facing Your Fear. May 8th, Dealing with Your Anger. May 15th, You Are Not Your Past. And finally, on the 22nd of May, we will close it down with You, my brothers and sisters, are free. Okay, other things happening here at Free. Man, we just started our book study, our book discussion on Tattoos on the Heart. One of my favorite books. I'll actually say more about that later tonight. 30 or so of you are part of this group, and we had so much fun last week. And if you want to come, just come on by. You can join us. Join us in person. There is Zoom as well, but maybe you want to be part of that. It's started last Wednesday. It'll go for 5 more Wednesdays, 6:30 to 8, right here at Free. Get the book and read it. Even if you're not part of this group, you want to read this book. It's that good. And finally, you know what tomorrow is. Are Derek and Hallie in the house? Did I just see them leave? Yeah, they just left. Our first free softball game is tomorrow. Now, look, who you see in the picture, that's only about half the team. The team has grown since then. I think the team is about 22 people now, which is great because every Sunday we're going to be playing, and we play 2 games every Sunday. Our first games, plural, are tomorrow, so wish us luck, send us good vibes. We're going to have all kinds of fun. I don't know if we're going to win, but we're going to have all kinds of fun, and we're going to play hard. We're going to try to win. How's that? All right, y'all. That's it for me for what's coming up. If you've got questions, hit us up. You can drop some comments. If you want to share this, if you're watching right now on Facebook, you might want to hit the share button because how many of you deal with shame? How many of your friends, family, people you roam around with on social media or in your real lives deal with shame? So you might want to hit the share button and let other people in on the struggle, the wrestle, the conversation of dealing with our shame. And I promise you, you're not going to want to miss our guest storyteller tonight. Tina Mercer is in the house, and she's going to share a really cool story with us. So, all right, y'all, how we start in this community is with celebrations. We don't ignore the hard stuff. We don't ignore the heartache, the burdens, but we don't start there either. We start with celebration. So I want to invite you all and you all in the house to take 3 minutes and give us the good things happening in your life. Give us the places of new life, the places of sobriety anniversaries or birthdays or new jobs, stories of new life that are all around you all the time. Lift them up, put them in the comments. And I get it, for some of you, this is getting vulnerable. It's okay to get vulnerable. Good things happen when we open ourselves to community and vulnerability. So it might seem a little creepy, but go ahead and get creepy in the comments and put them in because we want to celebrate with you, and we believe that God loves celebrating with us. God always hears us and joins us and wants to hear from us. So take 3 minutes, and we'll be right back.
Hello world, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Got that that smile upon my face, 'cause there's excitement in the chase, this I know. Yeah, I'm going for the ride and find myself, I am alive, and I soar. Still I run toward the wind and let the challenge draw me in, 'cause I want more. Oh, we are all looking for adventure. 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 Oh, wake up heart and wake up mind, and see the world is yours to find. And with every passing day there's more, calling you out to explore. Get up and go. There is joy found in the race, and I feel it in the place where I'm free. And I simply can't deny it, that I feel adventure calling out to me. Yeah, we are all looking for adventure. 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 We are all looking for And I'm living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be. Living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be. I'm living free.
Online crowd right now. Welcome back, everybody. Tam, are you joining me this evening? I don't know where my wife went. There she is. She's in the back. I bet she's doing something with coffee. So listen, we're going to go ahead and man, we did all kinds of celebrating in here. Sobriety, 4 years, 90 days. Can I shout it out, Drew? Yeah. Drew, our tech team lead, just celebrated 4 years sober on April 5th. Way to go, Drew. Yeah, we can clap for that all day long. Amanda, who is new to this community, like in the last 90 days, I actually I talked about Amanda in my sermon last week in my message, and she was 80 days clean and sober. She just walked in today and said, guess what? I've got 90 days clean and sober. So way to go, Amanda. Proud of you. So glad you're part of this community. Let's celebrate with some of you online. Shall I read a couple of comments? Danny Colella. Danny is up in the mountains with family. So Danny is our digital content director here. He's obviously not here tonight, but he's celebrating some downtime with the fam. Danny and fam, I hope you're enjoying your time together. Soak it in, enjoy it. Vacation is important, right, Lex and Amanda? Downtime, breathe. It's good for us. All right, love you guys. Glad you're part of this community. Celebrating with you. You want this one?
Hello.
You still got your...
Oh,
There you
I was
go.
doing a coffee sale in the back. Sorry. Hey, Ricky.
We just want to see your
hi.
face.
Ricky says celebrating 998 days of continuous...
698.
What did I say?
900. You
Wow.
gave him big frontsies.
Are you sure you let me?
Yeah.
That was big. Andrew's back there shaking his head. 698 days of continuous sobriety, which puts me at 33 days closer to my goal. Everyone here has and will play a huge role in achieving this. Love y'all.
All right, Ricky, congratulations, man. One day at a time. Love you, brother. Glad you're part of this community.
When's
we'll
he
see.
coming out?
He's coming out in May. I think it's May 15th. We'll have to get clarification. He can clarify it in the comments.
Cool.
May
May.
15th.
He comes here.
He's coming here.
33 days.
Oh, that's right. I thought you said 3. We are a hot mess around here. Mike Anderson says,
Okay, I need to lay off the white coffee.
just grateful for another day sober. Mike, you, me both, brother. Glad you're part of this community. We are celebrating that with you.
Awesome. Elizabeth says, Mads was here for dinner last night. I can finally breathe. That's good stuff.
All right, Elizabeth. And we know that's been stuff you've been holding with
Yep.
tension. So celebrating that with you. Molly Ann King says, I'm preaching tomorrow morning.
I saw that.
Excited to share my message of letting go and letting God. Molly, we saw that on, I saw it on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and hey, so proud of you for the steps you've taken. And for those of you that don't know, she's in the ordination process. Molly, you can correct me in the comments, but you're commissioned as a deacon, I believe, right now. And so look at you, now you're preaching. I mean, the
That's so
life
cool.
we get to have, you know?
Yeah,
So,
good for you.
hey, you're going to knock it out of the park tomorrow. And if it's recorded, we would love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's on the Facebook or YouTube or whatever. Congratulations, celebrating the Facebook. She still makes fun of me. Let's hear from John.
So John, turning 33 on Monday, sending love from Paradigm One.
Paradigm One, a new nonprofit in town in Aurora, doing all kinds of kickboxing and exercising, and it's fun ways to stay sober. They're creating sober space with activity. John is like the chaplain there. And they have a free circle at Paradigm One that joins us every Saturday night. So love y'all. John, glad you're in the house at
So
Paradigm
good.
One. Welcome to all you Paradigm people. All right, shall we stop there?
One more.
Shall we do one more? Let's do one more.
Do you want me to take it?
Yeah.
You just did a lot of talking.
I know I did.
Jen said, I celebrated my 54th birthday on 4/4 and
In-
I think
Uh-huh,
she meant
yep,
4/4.
yep.
And 19 months sober on 4/7. Very grateful.
Way to go,
That's good, Jen.
Jennifer. That's how you do it. All the way from North Carolina.
I'm going to take this, okay?
Yeah, you could. Would you mind getting me a little decaf, just a decaf though? I want to sleep some tonight. All right, y'all. We love to celebrate with you. If you have more celebrations that you want to put in the comments, just because we stop publicly doesn't mean you have to stop celebrating. So you can keep them coming all night long, all week long, if you've got them. And listen, we are going to talk about shame tonight. Why it is we don't do shame. This is the first part of our second week series called Deep Clean. Here's a little video.
Keep playing with fire, knowing it's a dangerous game. So we keep playing with fire.
So here's 4 very brief and simple ways that I define shame, and I'm going to keep them brief. The first is, shame is when you look into the mirror and you hate what you see. Second thing about shame, shame is the relentless hope that no one ever really sees you. And number 3 about shame, shame is the embodiment of, if God could see all of me, God wouldn't want me. And number 4, the final thing about shame, shame is that internal nagging voice that tries to convince you that hiding is always the best option. So if you're here tonight, if you're joining us online, I want to know, this community wants to know, how do you all define shame? From your experience and observation, what is it you say about shame? Give us in the comments, give us a word, a line, a phrase, a sentence on how you define or describe shame. Now, there's an expert in shame resilience theory. Did you know this exists? It's actually a critical theory in academia now, shame resilience theory, and they describe and define shame this way. Shame is an intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Uh-oh. There we go. You just got to turn it all the way down. So some of you know, I just mentioned it a few minutes ago, that we're doing this book study here at Free. 6 weeks on the book, Tattoos on the Heart, The Power of Boundless Compassion, written by Father Gregory Boyle. Father Gregory Boyle is a Jesuit priest, but he's also the founder of Homeboy Industries down in LA, which is by the way, the largest gang intervention program in the world. They're doing all kinds of great work. They are invested in giving these former gang members jobs, getting gang members off the streets, getting them jobs. And so we're doing this 6-week study. And by the way, if you want to join us, you can. About, like I said, 30 or plus of you are signed up for this and came last week, and it was all kinds of fun. Now, Father G, as they call him, or just G for Gregory, he opens the book with this story about Luis. And Luis is a former gang member. He's a former drug dealer, and he's in the process of turning his life around. And at Homeboy Industries, they also have Homeboy Bakery. It's a bakery, and they put people to work. And Luis has worked his way up to be one of the supervisors at Homeboy Bakery. And one of Luis's jobs is to also welcome these tour buses, because people love to come to Homeboy and take a tour, and they come in droves. And so he's welcoming people off of the tour bus. That's one of his jobs, and giving people tours and making them feel welcome. And one day he steps into G's office. He says, "G, man, what's up with white people? Why do white people always use the word great? They get off the bus and they say, man, this place is great. Then they meet us homies and see us working and say, man, you people are great. Then they walk into the bakery, they say, this bakery is great. And then they taste the bread and they say, man, this bread is just great. Gee, why they always got to use great?" And G says, well, I don't know why we white people like to use that word. But he said from that moment on, he found 1,000 different ways to let Luis know that he was great, just to mess with him. And one particular evening, Father G was pulling up to the bakery, and Luis comes running out of the bakery, and man, he's just overwhelmed with joy. He's smiling, his eyes are watery, and he says, "Gee, man, you're not going to believe it." He said, "I finally have my own home. I just got a tiny apartment for the first time ever. I'm paying rent with honest and clean, hard-earned money." He said, "Gee, but it gets a lot better, because last night I went to pick up my daughter, who's 4 years old, and I took her to our new home where we would be living together. And my 4-year-old daughter ran into the apartment and checked everything out. And then she stood in the living room and she said, man, this place is just great." And he said, "Gee, I think she's turning white on me." And he could barely get through the story with keeping his cheeks dry. And Father G looks at him and he says, "Man, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but man, you did this. You did this, and you went from being the biggest drug dealer in town, and you gave it all up to bake bread. And now you have a home. And Luis, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you are great." And see, Luis, he was learning how to love himself again, how to find value again, seeing his worth again. And shortly after he and his daughter moved into his apartment, Luis was gunned down and became a victim of gang violence, a drive-by shooting. And see, if you haven't heard it lately, if it's been a minute, let me take the opportunity to tell you, you, my brothers and sisters, are great. But see, the problem is so many of us live not into the greatness that God created us with, but we live in a constant spitting cell, and we're placed there by our own shame. You know what a spitting cell is? It was a torture device used for prisoners. And they would place these prisoners in this closet that would only be big enough to fit one person. And the closet door would close just up to the neck, and it would leave the head and the face exposed. And there was no room to move your arms, no room to move your legs. And you know why they called it a spitting cell? Because when the jailer would walk by, and this person would be in there for hours or even days sometimes, the jailer it was custom and ritual to spit in the face of the prisoner. Unable to wipe your eyes, the only thing you could do is close your eyes and hope that it wouldn't happen again. hope that it would go away. And listen, y'all, I get it. Things happen in our life. We do things are done to us, and it leaves us with this feeling of being so stuck, and we're stuck in this spitting cell, and the world just keeps spitting at us, and the only hope we have is we just close our eyes and hope that it goes away soon, and hope that it doesn't happen again. And look, it doesn't always have to be those big moments, those tragic moments of loss. Sometimes it is the ones that cause shame, but not always. You know, when I was 21 years old, I was in college here in Colorado, just moved out here to Colorado. I was at college studying biblical studies, preparing to be a pastor. And I got a call from my home church back in my hometown in Missouri, and they were inviting me to come and be one of the keynote speakers of a large conference on a particular weekend. And I was so excited about this, so humbled and honored to be part of this experience. So I go out to this conference. There was even flyers. This was back in the day, right? 2003, 2004. Flyers with my picture on it, my name on it. Such an honor to go up there. So I get up on stage, and y'all listen, I was given 30 minutes to talk about. I don't even remember what the topic was. And I was the opener of the conference. I was like the keynote opener. And I was given 30 minutes, 21 years old. And what I did was I went up on a stage, and the weeks leading up, I didn't come up with notes. I didn't prepare any remarks. I got up on stage and I said, well, God's going to tell me what to say. I'm sure of it. Yeah. Now, this isn't a moment of Ryan being humble right now. This is a moment of honesty. It was an absolute disaster. It was a total flop. Out of the 30 minutes that was allotted to me, I took all 4 of them. And I might as well have given the speech in Swahili. It would have been better. It would have been more interesting. I was rambling. I didn't have thoughts put together. I ended with this. By the way, if you ever get invited to do public speaking, don't ever end with this line. This is what I did. Well, that's about all I have to say on that topic. And then I walked off the stage. Yeah, cover your face. It was so embarrassing. I mean, really. I walked off the stage, and I sat in the front row, and a buddy of mine was sitting next to me. And I will never forget what he said. He looked at me, and his eyes were big. He said, dude, that wasn't your best. And y'all, I'm telling you, in that moment, I hated myself. I couldn't face myself. I was telling myself these stories, and it wasn't just for days or weeks or months. It was for years. And the stories went like, Ryan, you are not respectable. You're not wise. You're not intelligent. You don't have anything to say. You're not informed. And all these stories I was telling myself, I was so certain that everyone else was telling that same story about me, and I just wanted to hide. I just wanted to close my eyes and hope that would never happen again. And here's how serious it was. For 4 years, I hid. For 4 years, I believed those stories, and anytime I was asked to do any sort of public speaking, it didn't matter if the group was 2 people or 1,000 people, I said no. No, don't even have to think about it. Nope. If I needed an excuse, I had it. If I needed a lie, I had those too. No way was I going to experience that shame again. It wasn't until 2008 when Gary Brower, the chaplain of the University of Denver, invited me to give a sermon in the DU chapel. And I'll never forget what it was like to say yes to that. But what I know is living with shame always inevitably leads to self-hatred. You know, it was just a couple years ago. My daughter, Shiloh, who's 8 years old now, so she was about 6 at the time, I was going in to tell her goodnight, tuck her in, and she says, she's looking a little down, and her eyes are a little watery, and she says, Poppy, I just can't believe I'm the one who ate the egg-free cookies. And I'm thinking, what in the heck is she talking about? It's been a good day. What are you talking about? She's all sad about this. And in that moment, it dawned on me The egg-free cookies, I remember because a couple of weeks ago, Mama made a batch of chocolate chip cookies, and we have a son who's allergic to eggs, and so part of that batch was egg-free. And when they came out of the oven, Mama said to all the kids in the kitchen, and I was in there too, she said, whatever you do, don't eat the egg-free cookies. These are for Breck's lunch. We went upstairs. We come back downstairs. It had been a couple hours, and guess what? All the egg-free cookies are gone. And anyone with kids, you can testify to this. What happens when you ask, babies, what happened to the egg-free cookies? Oh, are they gone? Man, that's weird. Oh. And here we are 2 weeks later. Yeah, sometimes it's not just kids, is it, Ben? Here we are 2 weeks later, and Shiloh is confessing to eating the egg-free cookies. And I said, Shiloh, I'm so grateful that you confess this. Now, what do you think we need to do to make things right? And she said, Poppy, I know I got to go apologize to Mom. And she worked so hard on those cookies. And then I got to apologize to my brother Breck. And I hate apologizing to him because he's always so mean about it. And she went and apologized. And then she came back and life was good. She fell asleep. But guess what? Like 3 nights later, I go in to tuck Shiloh in bed, and she's hiding under her covers. Hiding under the covers. I thought she was playing with me. I thought she was just playing a game. And so I'm trying to get the covers off, and she's pulling tighter and tighter and hiding even more and more. And finally I said, baby, it's getting late. You've got to go to sleep. And I ripped this cover off, and tears are coming down her cheeks. And she says, Poppy, I just can't believe I'm the one who ate the egg-free cookies. And I said, baby, we talked about this. You owned it. You confessed it. You went and made things right. You made your amends. You got to let this go. And she says, I know, but I bet you and Mama are just so disappointed. And you know when you got to have that serious talk with your kids. And I had to say, baby, you need to know this. There is nothing you could ever do to get me and Mama to love you any more or any less because we already love you exactly the way you are. There's nothing you can do to change that. Nothing. You see, but what I know about shame is shame will always try to convince you that hiding is the best option. And y'all, it's almost like it's been this way from the beginning, isn't it? You see, the ancient Hebrew people, they told a story in the book of Genesis. Now, Genesis, it's the first book of the Bible, the first book of the Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible as we call it. And they tell these stories of creation. And I say stories in the plural because there's 2 stories of creation in the first 3 chapters in Genesis. And the second story starts later in Genesis chapter 2, and it's a story about Adam and Eve eating of this fruit from a particular tree. Now, whenever we read stories from the scriptures, we always have to ask this question. Why did they tell these stories, and why did they tell these stories in this particular way? Because remember, they are a people trying to figure out what life with God is about. They are people trying to make sense of feelings of joy and suffering and overcoming and pain and loss and all the feelings we don't know what to do with. Sound familiar? Isn't that what we still do today? So they're telling this story, and it picks up in Genesis chapter 2, and we get this really interesting verse. Check it out. The 2 of them were naked, Adam and Eve, the man and his wife, but they weren't embarrassed. Interesting, isn't it? Why would this be in the scriptures? So the story continues, and here they are. They're walking around this. They've just been created. They're walking around this garden called Eden, and God says, in this garden, you can do whatever you want. I want you to name animals. You're going to see creation bursting forth in front of you. Life is good, but listen, whatever you do, just don't eat anything on this particular tree, because if you eat from that tree, well, you're going to die. Well, okay, that's fine. And so life is good. They're roaming around until a snake comes along. Not just any snake, but a talking snake. Now, look, if you are reading Genesis as a book about how the world was created and you're reading it as science, well, you're going to get all kinds of confusion. Genesis is not a science book. It is a theological book. It tells us something about humanity and God. And so this snake, this talking snake, says to them, hey, have you guys checked out this tree? You should eat this fruit. No, we can't eat that fruit. God said if we ate that fruit, we would die. Oh, come on, you don't really believe that, do you? You got to eat this fruit. It's good. You're going to benefit from this. Pretty easy to convince them. They grab the fruit, they start eating, and we're told from the story in the text that once they started eating, they noticed their nakedness. So they go and get a bunch of fig leaves, tie them together, and start covering up their stuff. Now here's where the story picks up, just 3 verses. Check it out. During that day's cool evening breeze, they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the Lord God in the middle of the garden's trees. The Lord God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" The man replied, "I heard your sound in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself." Shame in that moment enters the human story. God, if you see the real me, you're not going to want me. Shame will always try to convince you that hiding is the best option. In the Genesis story, it could have stopped there. It could have actually ended with a simple verse of, "And then God's heart shattered at the thought of God's own kids being afraid." At the thought of God's own kids being afraid that God would actually see who they really are. And I wonder if for God in that moment it was like a great parent fail. He had to have a serious talk with the kids. And can't you imagine God saying to them, "What? I mean, are you serious? I created you. I created you. There's nothing you could do to keep me from wanting to be with you. My children, my sons and daughters." You see, but the story of Genesis doesn't stop there. We're told in the text that Adam and Eve, they go on to live these lives east of Eden, the place of shame. And see, the rest of the biblical story is essentially the story about what it means to cooperate with God and make our way back to Eden, the place where there is no shame. Now, yeah, of course, they did something wrong. They sinned. How do we understand sin? The disruption of shalom. Anything that disrupts shalom. And remember, shalom is that ancient Hebrew word, and it means peace. It means wholeness and well-being and completeness. Anything that comes along to disrupt shalom. And now they live east of Eden. My brothers and sisters, do you live lives east of Eden? Is shame holding you in a spitting cell, holding you captive, closing your eyes, thinking to yourself, well, maybe this will just go away. Maybe it won't happen another time. And in your life, has shalom been disrupted by something you've done or by something that was done to you, and now you're hiding in the relentless hope that no one ever really sees the real you, and now you've convinced yourself because of your hiding that there's no way God wants to see the real you? And if you're honest, on most days when you wake up, do you look in the mirror and hate what you see? You're disgusted with what's there. You see, what can separate us from God's love? Nothing. You don't have to hide. The Apostle Paul said to the Romans, he wrote a letter to this church in Rome, and he says it so beautifully. "For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all of creation will be able to separate us from the love of God." Nothing. You don't have to hide. And I'll close with this. For those of you that might be sitting there thinking, well, now wait a minute, Ryan, wait a minute, Pastor. I mean, we've got to let them know that they're wrong, right? I mean, whoever the them is, we've got to let them know that they're living in ways that are opposed to God, and we've got to let them know, right? Hold on now. Don't you think they already know? I mean, don't you think eating of the fruit, seeing what happened, don't you think the darkness is enough? Don't you think they know they're dying? And the truth is, someone is probably sitting here tonight, or someone's watching online. Someone's going to be watching online this week, and someone is going to lose the battle with picking up the drink. The truth is, someone is going to lose the battle with getting loaded tonight because the shame is just too great. And you think by telling them how bad they are, you think that's going to make any bit of difference? You think by maybe we can manipulate them enough and let them know that they're living opposed to God and God's going to punish them? And look, for people already in that shame, that's hell enough. You know, so when people ask, why don't you do shame in this community? Two simple reasons. The first is, it doesn't work. I mean, name me one example where shame produced a positive outcome. And the second, maybe more importantly, because that's not who God is. God is love, period. Religion's done a great job at adding on to that sentence. We got to add a bunch of buts to that and ands to, no. God is love, period. You don't ever have to add anything to it. You see, as a recovering alcoholic who is at the height of his addiction while serving as a pastor, I know something about shame. And I know it's absolutely miserable. And here's what I know about my story. Maybe it's true for you. I wasn't shamed into healing. I was always loved my way there. Because you see, shame never creates healing. Only God's love could do that. So I want you to take a minute. Take 60 seconds and reflect on the question, what would it look like for you to come out of hiding? Because my brothers and sisters, you don't have to hide anymore. God's better than that. You don't have to hide anymore. People are better than that. You don't have to hide anymore. Don't stop there. What would it look like for you to also help others come out of their hiding? Take 60 seconds. Give it to us in the comments. Give us a word or a phrase. Let the community in on where your mind, where your heart is. We'll come right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a moment to reflect. And I know that's not something we do in 1 minute, is it? We don't reflect on the power of our shame in 1 minute. For many of us, it takes years to work through that stuff. Where have you experienced shame in your life? Speaking of, I want you all to meet our guest storyteller. If you're new with us this evening, it's something that we think is a little unique in this community. We always, every Saturday night, have a guest storyteller in the house to share with us some of their experience around the theme that we're talking about that night. Tonight we have Tina Mercer. I had somewhat of an introduction planned out, but I don't want to give that introduction because here's a cool thing that happened. You know what? Let's watch her video. Then I'm going to tell you the cool thing that happened. I want you all to help me welcome Tina Mercer. Man, someone so strong in here just picked up our table and it's probably broke. That's what's wrong. Whoa, there it goes. Tina fixed it. That's why we have Tina here, because she's the fixer of all things. No, so here's what I was going to say about Tina. And can I just say it, Tina? So Tina's a fellow alcoholic in recovery. She's got a story of shame and her addiction. By the way, if you guys have questions for Tina, you can, or comments, you can pop them in the live feed on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll try to take some of those questions along the way. I'll monitor as we sit here, so don't think I'm not paying attention to you. I am. I'm just also paying attention to the live feed. How's that?
That sounds great.
So here's what happened, though. Like 30 minutes before we started tonight, Tina texted me and said, hey, I know we had planned out everything I was going to say. We had this kind of outline going, but this really cool story happened today, and it has everything to do with shame in my life. And can I share that story with the community? And I'm like, that's kind of cool. Sometimes you just got to let God and Spirit move. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I may or may not interrupt you. I'm just going to let you go. I might ask some questions along the way.
That sounds
Tina,
good.
I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being
Oh my
here.
gosh, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Am I good?
Yeah, you're good. You might want to hold it up. I don't know how
Closer?
close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to see your faces because you do this for people like me every single week. You show up and you serve, and it has been so life-giving to me to be able to not be a seen face and just kind of dwell with God and listen. So thank you guys for that.
Can I say what you told me? I put it in the email this morning
Who's
too.
telling the story tonight?
I
Ryan?
know. But you said a really powerful line, and it has stuck with me, and I wrote it, I put it in my phone when you said it. You said, and it was about free. You said, it was so cool to just be able to show up and not have to produce, and I could come to free and heal. And I was like, man, that's good, because in our mission is like to create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. So anyway, I just wanted to say
Thank
that.
you.
Now I got to hear this story.
Okay.
I don't even know
Well,
it.
we have to back up a little bit because when I agreed to this, we weren't talking about shame. So Ryan's like, let's start in chapter 3 and hear the story. So I'm going to start at chapter 1 when he said, do you want to talk about new life? And I said, absolutely. That sounds so good. I have so much new life in my life right now. Then like Wednesday, he's like, we're actually going to talk about shame. And I was like, okay, I felt like I was supposed to say yes to this, but like, how do I tie a nice bow on my shame? Okay, so like, I'm just going patiently through the week, hoping that something's going to come. So I want to tell you about shame, how it got me into addiction, and how shame still shows up in my addiction, in my life post-addiction. So first I want to say I love that you said the stories that we tell are about humanity and God, because I so badly want God in a box and me in the driver's seat. And then like, if I'm veering off the road, like, could you just get back in the driver's seat for like a hot minute and then I got it. And that's how I've lived my whole life. I'm really, really good at it. It's so destructive. So shame. Wow. Last night, my dear pastor posted on Facebook that I have a broken marriage. I'm a divorced person. I about vomited because
I got a text.
I just reworked what he posted. Here's the deal about life. I thought, okay, I'm 2.5 years sober. I'm going through it. I'm becoming a mom I want to be. I'm talking with my kids about emotions. I have a great relationship with my co-parent, my son's dad. Like, I want to tell you about new life. I don't want to talk about shame. And when I saw that, it was shame. It was, no, let me tell you how hard I tried. Let me tell you that 10 years of like working so hard is worth more than a soundbite. I wanted to defend it, you know? And it's so crazy because, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, this is good. Keep going.
It was so important for me to see that there's so much tenderness around that with shame, there's grief there, and that's okay. You know what I mean? And I was okay with grief around shame of other things. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I'm not so-and-so. I'm not, fast enough. All the enoughs that at least I did before I came into AA. And I wanted to say that because it is so bizarre to me that such a large part of our population can be in broken relationship, and that it can be such a source of shame and something that we won't talk about unless it's like in close quarters with a therapist. And I just want to say that like healing my experience is that a number of things. Okay, ready, let's go. Number one, God is like relentless in his love, and like in ways that I don't even have my like box around. He's relentless. And I mean, just a year ago, life looked so different. And I also believe that in a year, life will look very different. You guys have been praying, and I appreciate that, for healing of relationships that I just did not think could happen. I was sharing with Ryan. Just stop me if you need to.
No, you're
but,
good. I was going to have them get out a pen because they might want to take notes. Because you said number one, which means there's going to be a number two.
There's only
so
going to
the
be
first
like
one was God's love is
points.
relentless.
It'll be so good.
18 points. We're going to be here till 10 o'clock.
8:15, and I have like
You're
7
good.
minutes
You're
left.
good. You're good.
So, but what is beautiful about walking through pain and suffering is that my life had to bottom out. I had to not be able to get off the couch. People showed up at my door. Like, I have this old friend who came down from Wyoming with a bag of power tools and was like, get up, it's time to learn. Like, my community came around me and was like, you don't get to sit here. You don't get to wallow. You don't get to be a victim of some of the choices that you made. You get to get up and you get to keep walking. And so what I wanted to say real quick is the gifts that shame some of the gifts that shame has given me is the ability to sit in the discomfort. I did not want to sit in the discomfort when I saw that post. I was like, bah! But like, as no longer an emotionally stunted person, I get to look at that. What hurts? Oh, it hurts. Okay, those are feelings. These are new. I only did anger, so I did one. Now I have more
Such
than
a
one.
good point.
Yeah, it's
Because
painful.
don't you think, I am going to interrupt you
Oh,
for
yeah,
a
I'm
moment,
ready.
because don't you think, like I'm thinking back to my days of active addiction, I didn't have to sit with those feelings of
No way.
loneliness. They would come and I'd say, I got to get rid of this.
Totally.
And I knew how to numb those things out.
Totally.
And now as sober people think, oh, those demons are just going to go away. You're never going to experience shame and discomfort. No. We actually get to sit with those things now. We have tools to deal with those things. They're still there.
Totally.
Now we get to face them and slay them.
Well, and what's so weird about that too is, like AA has taught me how to be okay in it. You know, I thought, well, if I just get rid of the drink, if I just get rid of the husband, if I just get rid of all the things,
Yep.
you know, and it's like, no, the reality is that I am me, and this comes in me because I am, and this is how I see it. I'm a broken human that needs a higher power to carry me. I am like I said, I'm very good at wanting to be in the driver's seat. I'll finish up real quick.
Very good.
But what I want to say is that not only do I get to learn about emotions, I get to navigate them, and I get to navigate them with my kiddos. And that is like, ooh, I don't want to say this out loud, but like I would probably go through all of that again to be able to kneel down and say, are you feeling overwhelmed? Or you look disappointed, or what is it you're feeling? Like give the little people who are going to be like men at some point, voices to express their real feelings. And I didn't have that, and I filled in those gaps and those cracks of like the lack of emotional connection with drugs and alcohol and other bad behaviors. And so I love that because of the shame and because of the healing and the continual process that I get to face the shame in my life, and I get to call it out, and I get to say, no, we're shining
Yeah.
a flashlight on this. And my sponsor always says, don't you go up into that head of yours without like a flashlight in front, you know? And,
That's true.
and I'm like, okay, here we go. So anyway.
And don't you think it's kind of a thing now where when they come up, it's not like a freakish, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? This is so, it's like, oh, I know this feeling. Oh, I know what this is. This is shame. I've been there before. And it gets a little easier the more we deal with it.
So I love to hear that because I did not feel that way. I felt like time to call my sponsor and my whole sponsor family tree to find out what to do with this big emotion. I told you I only had one like 2 years ago, so like give me some time, right?
I get it.
But I do hear what you're saying, and I do feel like it's paving the way for like beautiful growth that is completely out of my control.
Yeah. Brene Brown, if y'all have not read Brene Brown, she's just a must read. Everything she writes, you need to read it. The Gifts of Imperfection. When you talk about the gifts of shame, it's like, oh man, she talks about the gifts of imperfection. She talks a lot about shame. And she has this great way of talking about we go into the darkness. And the first time you go into the darkness, you're like, what in the hell is going on here? And then, but the more you go in, the more you're willing to go in, you know that light is somewhere in there. I'm not saying it nearly as eloquently as she would. But the more you do it, the better we are at finding light in the darkness. We've just got to have the willingness to go in. And that's the hard part.
I wrote that down, looking shame in the eye,
Yeah.
Just call it what it is.
Which also, don't you think, so you're a 12-stepper.
I am
If you're a 12-stepper in the house tonight, give a whoop whoop. Did I just make the congregation do whoop whoop? Yes, I did. So when we do like a step 5, right, where we admit the exact natures of our wrongs to God and to another human being. For me, I had to learn that human being part's really important, because I told my sponsor, I'm just going to do this with God, and he said, no, we're going to do it together. But it was the looking at someone eyeball to eyeball, owning that shame, like, dude, this is how it felt, and it didn't feel good.
Yeah, totally. And you know what's so funny about that is I come from like a nice looking family that looks nice on the outside, which is great. They lots of really great qualities. Emotional, like strength is not one of our strengths. But I didn't ever really hear the word sorry, and I never said the word sorry until about like 2.5 years ago, and not even just like a sorry, but like I own this thing that I did, and this is what I'm going to do to make the amends. And actually, I know I already touched on this already, but one of the beautiful things is that I get to have a living amends with my kid's dad. And that holds me to a higher standard every single day, because I want to get in there. I want to know what's going on when they're together on the weekend. I want to know, are they eating their vegetables? I've got really good ideas about how everyone should parent. And
She's one of those.
Right? And this is why I need the 12 steps.
You know, there's
and
an
a higher
actual thing
power.
called parent shaming now.
Well, I'm not going to do that, and I'm also not going to receive that, because that nearly killed me in 2015, which I thought would be the worst year of my life until later when I
Say
had a
more
worse
about
year.
that. Just in like, what time is it? This
Well,
conversation's
we've got, like,
so interesting.
We've got 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, give us that story. I want to hear that.
2015?
2015.
Okay, well,
Shame, 2015.
Okay. Well, I had a baby at the end of 2014. 8 days later, I hosted. I cannot believe you're asking me this. This is so God of you. Like, not let you. It's just like really funny, because this is like not what I want to say.
Yeah.
So 8 days later, I hosted Christmas, because obviously I can birth a 9-pound baby and then host Christmas like a few days later in my
Lord.
home. Right? Like, okay, so insanity, which I was offended because it says we're insane in this book. I was like, oh, no, not me. Okay, so then where are we? We're like January, February. Well, basically we had 5 deaths of close friends and family during that year. My husband lost his job of 10 years at a church that we had our community in. We just kept getting kicked, and we did not rebound from that. And God pulled us through it, and God is doing something beautiful now with both of our lives. But are you sorry you ask?
No, not at all.
I
mean, this is the stuff
it
people
was
need
real.
to hear, right?
Even as I tell you, I feel the heavy. God, and I want to say, like, God doesn't leave you. You know what? Like, watching friends suffer. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any like pretty bow. Like I said, I don't
Yeah.
have pretty bows for all the things.
And I love that, actually. When we met at the Panera this week, and it was a beautiful afternoon, we sat outside with Liam, and we were sitting there. She said, I have this story, but I don't have a pretty bow to put on it. And I said, so perfect. Please don't put a pretty bow on it. Because sometimes that's a temptation, right? I used to be a drunk, and now I'm in recovery.
Completely.
Bing! And we put a bow on top and say, life is good. No, life is still a struggle.
And you know what? If you have, like, for me anyway, if I have the practice of shame in my head, like, that's where I go automatically.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, I don't want a pretty bow, but none of the pictures you sent for this are okay. Just saying.
That's a great one. I love it.
Well, that one did get approved. Okay, I just want to say one more thing.
Say it.
Liam, who was born in 2016, his name is Liam Isaiah Jeremiah, and God just really had me in. Even though I didn't even want to believe in God, I'm just like, "Argh!" But He had me in those Old Testament prophets that just aren't pretty, and it is hard, and that's reality. It can be the both and, the humanness, and also thank God that, like, in my belief, I also have a higher power who will carry me through.
Yeah. You mentioned Isaiah. I told you I might use Isaiah
You got
text
44
today. I got
seconds.
44 seconds to tell you about my first tattoo.
Okay, I'm ready.
My first tattoo I got with, actually it was my second tattoo. I got it with my brother right before he was killed in a car accident. And it's a cross, and it says Isaiah 43 below it. And it's Isaiah 43 is, when you go through the waters, you will not drown. When you go through the fires, you will not burn. Wherever you are, I am with you. Well, in my brother's car accident, his car burned. His body was burned beyond recognition. And it was like, dang, that's who God is. Like, you go through that stuff, that's where God is, because this God, and the ancient Hebrew people believed it, wherever you are, God is in that place. And I had it tattooed on my arm before I even went through all the stuff. And whew.
I love that you said wherever you go, God is in that place. Like,
Yeah.
we don't need to invite Him. I don't need to invite Him. I don't need to know how it's going to end. I just need to show up.
Yep.
So thank you.
Thank you for being here, Tina. I had no clue what to expect after that text. And it's like, what a beautiful conversation. We could have done this all night long.
Oh my gosh, you're the
Will y'all give Tina a round of applause for being here? So fun. I'll take that. Lindsay's going to take that for you. Thank you, Tina. Thank you. If you have questions for her, put them in the comments. Drop a line. Let her know, let her know you're grateful she was here. And listen, I want to say a word to you about why we don't do shame in this community. We truly don't do shame. When it comes to giving in this community, we don't do shame either. But I do talk about giving every week because it is an important piece here. And I want to say this. You see the wagon. It's a central image in our community. And I don't even want to talk about the wagon tonight. What I want to say is, when you give in this community with your financial gifts, and I know for many of you it is a spiritual practice, it is a sacrificial practice, and you all teach me that. But what I want to say is, when you give, you are giving to people who experience shame, who are being told they don't belong, who are looking for a place, a church, a people, a spiritual community where they truly are welcomed. You know, right before the service started, someone was asking me, you said spiritual refugees. What is a spiritual refugee? And those are all the people. And you can pick your own people, pick your own community, pick your people on the margins. Therefore, anyone who's been told they don't belong. God is against you. God isn't for you. You need to stay in your shame and maybe get fixed along the way. Man, this community is for you. This community is for people looking for healing, recovery from whatever negative experience, and people who are looking for spiritual connection. That's why we're here. So when you give, you're giving to create that kind of space. So your generous giving is welcomed here. There's and I'll talk about the wagon next week, but on top of the wagon, we do have a giving box, and there's giving boxes scattered throughout free. But I also want to let you know, because many of you give online these days, and there's 3 simple ways to give. The first is to simply download the free Spiritual Community app, which is free, and you could give there however you would like to give, how often you would like to give. The same with the website, freespiritualcommunity.com. You can give there, and we are... or you can text the number on your screen, text Be the Wagon, and it'll walk you through some simple instructions. Your giving helps sustain, and not just sustain, but cause this mission to thrive of breaking the silence of addiction. Y'all, I'm so glad you're here. But the way we close down free, what time is it? 7:59. So we've got time. We want to close down free each week with heartaches. And you're like, dang, that's like a bummer to close down with. Nah, man, heartaches, it's this great reminder to us that we don't carry these burdens alone, that God always hears the cries of God's people. We believe this. So we lift these things up. we carry these burdens together as a community. We pray for one another. We encourage one another. We text one another throughout the week and email and Facebook and whatever y'all kids do these days. We try to stay connected. But again, you got to get vulnerable and you got to let people know what burdens you're carrying. And so if you put a comment in, and I know it can feel a little awkward if it's your first time you're putting your heartache in the comment, we want you to do so. We have a prayer team that will take that comment and pray for you all week. And if you want, we'll connect with you as well. But we believe in this stuff. It's not just something. Jason, is it true? I mean, we believe in this stuff. Jason's over there where he sits every single Saturday night and takes notes on these things. And man, I know y'all don't see Jason a lot. You may not. I know here you do, but online you don't. This dude loves people. He loves y'all, and wants y'all to know that. So we pray for you. And so take 3 minutes and give us some heartaches, and we'll come right back. It's your chance to get vulnerable. Prayers for you and Cameron and the family. Oh, Tammy's coming back. Drew, should we stand up or stay seated?
Stay seated.
Let's stay seated. All right, y'all. Should I scoot over a little bit? You want to start? This is Tammy, by the way. Sometimes I feel like we need to introduce you more often because for any new people, they may not know that we're married and your name is Tammy. And I don't know. Y'all should know that we're married. Her name is Tammy. This is my wife, and I'm glad you're here. Go ahead.
Brandon, requesting prayers as I get ready to go back to work this coming Friday.
All right, Brandon.
Cool.
Yeah, glad he's going back to work. But hey, miss y'all tonight too, by the way. I got your text. The fam is hanging together online this evening. Terry says, pray for the Uber passenger whom I took to the methadone clinic and share details about his service, about this service. Terry, prayers for that dude, and glad you were able, You know what? Glad you're sober and clean and able to take him to a methadone clinic.
Right.
So, way to go, man. Tell him about Free. We would love to welcome him into this community. Prayers for him. Prayers for you.
Hey, Mike. He says prayers for my cousin. She lost her husband last night. It seems to be a heart attack. Prayers for my family during this time.
Yeah, prayers for you, Mike. Heavy stuff. Prayers for the family. Lori says, my heart is broken. I lost both parents in the last 9 months. My dad died on Tuesday, 9 months after my mom. Lori, I saw you shared that on Facebook too, and man, we're so sorry. Condolences to you, prayers for the family during this incredible time of loss.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah. And thanks for naming it, the broken heartedness that comes with that.
Pam says, praying for my son, homeless and using again, that God leads him to peace, sobriety, and keeps him safe.
Yeah.
Goodness, Pam.
Yeah, prayers for him. And I just also want to say a shout out to all our we're a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. So for all of you that have loved ones who are battling this thing of addiction, we're glad you're here. We want to keep creating that space for you to welcome you in and to love one another back to healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. So glad they're here too. Shall we do one more, Drew? A couple more? Let's do one more, and then y'all can keep them coming. Consuelo Chavez, Ben's wife, and Ben just shared in here. So, Consuelo, I'm glad you're here. Am I saying her name right? Consuelo? Consuelo.
Yes.
Prayers for our community, our family, as we deal with addiction and healing and forgiveness. We're already lifting your family up because Ben mentioned it just a few minutes ago. So, lifting your family up in prayers for healing, for forgiveness, for all the good stuff that comes in this thing we call recovery. Prayers for you. Thank you for sharing with this community. All right. Well, it's so good to be with you all. Did we go a little over tonight? It's only 8:06. So, no, we did great. And Tina did great. Tina, thank you for being with us tonight. Dang. You want to stay with me while we close in prayer? Okay. Tina's going to stay with me while we close in prayer. And it is. Y'all, we're going out with the 7th step prayer tonight. Because sometime we need to do a little 7th step-in. If you don't know this prayer, it's on your screen, and it is a beautiful one and fits so great for tonight. And it goes like this. First, what I want y'all is to find a moment and quiet your space, quiet your heart, quiet spirit. And sometimes we even like to open our hands as a sign of openness to God, to Spirit. And this prayer goes like this. My Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. My free brothers and sisters, here in this place, we don't do shame. You don't have to hide anymore. God's not against you. God wants to be with you. You don't have to hide. You don't have to look in the mirror and hate yourself anymore. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of love from God, from others, and from self. My free brothers and sisters, I'm so glad you're here tonight and this week. May you experience grace and peace in the journey. We will see you next time.